heard about MTSS, PBIS, and RTI. These are all things that are going on in JCPS. While they're really quite simple, we don't always do a great job of explaining them, and so there are often broad misconceptions about each of them. In this brief introduction, we'll clarify what these terms mean and how they fit together. To start, MTSS stands for Multi-Tiered Systems of Support. This simply means that schools provide a primary level of support for all, a second, more intensive level of support to those for whom the primary level is insufficient, and a third, individualized level of support for those students with the greatest needs. This logic is often represented by a triangle in which Tier 1 for all students is represented by green, additional supports at Tier 2 represented by yellow, and intensely individualized supports at Tier 3 represented by red. But notice that Tier 2 does not take the place of Tier 1, and Tier 3 supports do not take the place of Tier 1 or 2 supports. The tiers are cumulative so that students receiving support in Tiers 2 or 3 receive additional supports. MTSS is an umbrella term describing any multi-tiered systems of support, whereas PBIS refers to this system applied to behavior and RTI refers to this system applied to academics. Because both PBIS and RTI are examples of MTSS, we use the term MTSS to refer to systems that include a focus on both academics and behavior. While there are many other components to MTSS, these modules will focus on the behavior component of the MTSS umbrella. In JCPS, MTSS is run by teams within the school. While the entire school is responsible for adhering to the MTSS framework, the team's job is to ensure that all necessary MTSS components are in place and being implemented appropriately. Each of these MTSS components is the focus of one of the instructional modules available in this series. While the components are exactly the same, the manner in which each is carried out will likely vary between elementary and secondary schools. For this reason, elementary and secondary versions are available. A key task for the school-wide MTSS behavior team is to utilize available screeners to actively identify students who would benefit from additional support. The modules in this series provide a tutorial on how to use a range of available screeners for behavioral data. Once screening data has been collected, the team's next task is to use the data to identify students in need. The big idea here is that schools do not wait for students at risk of falling further behind, but to actively mitigate the risk by using data to identify students who are not adequately responding to Tier 1 supports. Schools' use of data decision rules in the screening process identifies non-responders, meaning students who are not responding to Tier 1 as desired. Modules in this series provide examples of how such data-based decisions are made. Once non-responders have been identified, the team must develop supplemental evidence-based interventions corresponding to these students' needs. Not all Tier 2 interventions will be relevant for all identified students, and the team will need to oversee the development and implementation of necessary interventions at this level, based on data. Determining which interventions are necessary and ensuring that they are implemented with fidelity is the key here. Video modules in this series describe a prescriptive process for selecting relevant interventions. Because behavior interventions can be quite different, separate trainings are available from the MTSS Behavior District Support Team, which focus on each of these areas, providing examples of effective, evidence-based interventions focused on student needs. In the final step, behavior teams must monitor the progress of identified students. While this likely is a task that will be undertaken by all adults who work with these students, the team works to ensure that data is collected on student performance as a means of evaluating the effect of the intervention. Video modules in this series provide directions for implementing progress monitoring and specific examples for use with behavior supports. So MTSS is pretty simple. It's just looking for predictable areas where students are not being successful, implementing supports to prevent the misbehavior, and evaluating the effect. When we find that the student is still in need of intervention, we've effectively identified a student in need of supports at a higher tier. Schools and JCPS are all involved with MTSS, which means we are all working with multi-tiered systems for both academics and behaviors. As you engage with the videos in this series, particulars about what exactly needs to be done to support student behavior will become clear.